We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Dalet Amud Aleph Meseches Bava Metzia. This is Bava Metzia Daf 54a. On the previous summit, the Gemara asked when we're calculating adding a fifth, do we calculate that milagav or do we calculate that milabar? And what that means to say is, let's say, for example, you have 20 and you want to add 1/5 to 20. Do we calculate that 1/5 of 20 is you add 4? That would be the typical way we would add 1/5. You would add 4 to 20. The total would be 24, and that would be milagav, essentially from the inside. Or do you say milavar? That's from the outside. What that would mean is if you have 20, then you're going to pay 25 because 1/5 of 25 is 5. You're going after the total after you've added the fifth. And the Gemara is in the middle of bringing a proof from a brisa. The brisa is talking about a situation where a person makes something hektish and then he wants to redeem his own hektish. The halacha is he adds a fifth. But let's say somebody else is also trying to redeem that same hektish that this person made hektish, and so essentially they are competing in terms of who is going to redeem it. So the halacha in general is, let's say the original owner offers 20 and then someone else offers 20, so the original owner is going to be the one to redeem because he adds a fifth. And then the brisa says, let's say somebody offers 21, so then habaylim nosnim esrim v'sheish, so then the owners give 26. And the brisa continues along the same lines. Esrim u'shnayim, let's say somebody else offers 22, habaylim nosnim esrim v'sheva, then the original owners, they're going to give 27. Be esrim v'shalosh, if somebody offers 23, habaylim nosnim esrim u'shmona, so then the owners are going to give 28. Be esrim v'yarba, if somebody else offers 24, habaylim nosnim esrim v'teisha, then the owners give 29. And esrim v'chamish, if somebody offers 25, habaylim nosnim shloshim, then the owners, they give 30. Lefi she'ein mosifin chomesh al iloi shel zeh. The point is, you're not going to add a fifth just because this person essentially tried to outbid. In any case, you see clearly from the math, shma mina chumsha milavar, shma mina, you see that the 1/5 is from the outside, because again, we're essentially adding 1/5 to 20, and we're saying that is 25. And Rashi explains, habaylim nosnim al karchan esrim v'sheish, the owners have to give 26, she'efshar loses lazeh bi'echad v'esrim, because the person who's offering 21, he can't give 21, shenimtza hektish nifsad, b'chamisha slam, because then hektish is going to lose out. V'labaylim nami lo pachsinan min hakeren sheshama yishachar, and the owners, they can't give less in terms of the principal that somebody else offered, so they have to give at least 21 for the principal. Hilkach nosin chaf alef lekeren, so they give 21 for the principal, v'chamisha letosefes chomesh, and then they give 5 for adding the fifth. They only have to add the fifth to the 20. V'aliluyav shel zeh shehela b'dam of selen, and the fact that this person said 21, that extra 1, ein mosef chomesh, they don't have to add a fifth. El al keren sheshama, who only on the principal that was offered by the original owners. And then the brisa said, esrim v'chomesh habaylim nosim shloshim, that if the person offers 25, so then the owner gives 30. V'hasam parach, and Rashi says that over there, Meseches Erech, and they ask as follows, v'neimol the gizbar asa gavr b'charikoi. We're saying over here the owner is forced to give 30, but why are we forcing the owner? Why can't the owner say to the gizbar that somebody came in my stead, meaning harei ba'achar tachtenu shechavetz litein kamasha ola keren v'chomesh amarti. Someone is willing to give 25, and my principal in a fifth would be 25. That's equal. Ve'en hektish nifsat, so hektish is not going to lose out. V'lama noch v'zeh losei shloshim. Why are we forcing this owner to give 30? And the Gemara addresses that question over there. And then Rashi notes, V'siyam ha-mishnah, the conclusion of the Mishnah there is, Amar echad harei shali b'esrim v'sheish, if somebody offers 26, Omer higaticha, so then that person, he is going to be able to redeem. And finally, Rashi says, Shma mino chumsha milavar. We see from here that the fifth is calculated from the outside. Midiktani chomesh al esrim sloim chomesh sloim. From the fact that it says 1/5 for 20 sloim is 5 sloim. So chomesh menachutz. You see, we're calculating the 1/5 from the outside because the 1/5 is going on the 25. It's going on the total. You add 5 to the 20, and the total 1/5 of 25 is going to be 5. That's how much was added. And the Gemara continues, Kitanai, it's a machlokas tanaim, whether the chomesh is milavar or milagav. The pasuk says, V'yosaf chamishi so olive, it says you're going to add 1/5. Again, this is also talking about redeeming hektish. She'ehu v'chomsho chamish, it means to say that it and the fifth together is going to be 5. Divrei Rabbi Yoshia, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Yoshia essentially is saying that you calculate milavar. Rashi says, Hu v'chomsho chamisha, hainu chomesh milavar, that's a chomesh from the outside. Shu raviyah shel keren, it means to say you do a quarter of the principal. When you add 1/4 to the principal, then whatever you added is going to turn out to be 1/5 of the total. That's Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Yonasan says, Chamishi so. What does it mean, Chamishi so? Chomsho shel keren. It means 1/5 of the keren. That's what we call a chomesh milagav. And the Gemara continues, they had the following question. Chomesh ma'akev or eno ma'akev? Is the chomesh ma'akev or is it not ma'akev? Rashi explains, chomesh ma'akev achilu chutz l'choma. Talking here about redeeming Meiser Sheni, you have to redeem it onto money and you add a fifth. Once you redeem the Meiser Sheni, you can eat that Meiser Sheni outside of Yerushalayim. So ad she'iten chomesh, do you have to give the fifth in order to eat it outside of Yerushalayim? Or as long as you give the principal, that's already enough that you can eat it outside of Yerushalayim? And the Gemara explains the question, dalid b'dalid parak, is it 4 for 4 that you're redeeming? V'achenav she'mosef chomesh, and then he's adding the fifth, but that's essentially extra. Al machomesh lo ma'akev, you see the chomesh is not ma'akev. O dilmar, maybe it means arba b'chamisha parak, that you're actually redeeming 4 with 5, that is the redemption, meaning the added fifth is part of the redemption. The chomesh mi'akev, and the chomesh is going to be ma'akev. And Rashi explains, it means that you're adding that fifth, but it's not part of the redemption. It's really the 4 zos, the principle that's doing the redemption, and then you add a fifth. Or maybe you're actually redeeming 4 with 5. That's the gzeres hakosov, that the fifth is part of the redemption. If something's worth 4, it can't be redeemed with less than 5, because again, the fifth is going to be part of the redemption. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, come in here the following proof. Hademai ein lo chomesh, the halach is by Demai. Again, Demai is talking about Meiser Sheni, but you're not really sure if it's Meiser Sheni or not. So you got it from an Amoritz, you weren't sure what happened over there. So you're separating Meiser Sheni out of this suffix because you're not sure if the Amoritz took care of it. So the halach is ein lo chomesh, the halach is that there's no halacha of a fifth when you're redeeming the Meiser Sheni of Demai. Ve'ein lo biur, there's also not a halacha of biur. So hakaren yeshlo, so it sounds like there's no fifth, but there is a general redemption of the principle. My time, and what's the reason for the distinction? Because karen de ma'akev b'doraisa, because apparently when it comes to the principle, which on a doraisa level is ma'akev, so isa, so then that's gonna apply. But isa b'drabanan, that's going to apply even by the drabanan of the mai. Chomesh de lo ma'akev b'doraisa, but the fifth, which is not ma'akev on a doraisa level, lesser b'drabanan will not apply by the rabbanan level. So in other words, you see that the chomesh is not ma'akev. And Rashi explains, the Mishnah in Demai said, Hademai Meiser Sheni shel Demai. Again, we're talking about Meiser Sheni of Demai. Shechayvu chachamim lahafresh halokech me'am haaretz. The chacham say you have to take off that Meiser Sheni. If you bought it from an am haaretz, ein lo chomesh im podeo ba'alav. If the owner redeems it, he doesn't have to give the fifth. Ve'ein lo beer. There's also no halacha of beer. The halacha of beer, says Rashi, is b'shana shlishis, in the 3rd year, talking about the Shemitah cycle. The 3rd year of the Shemitah cycle, shenitztavu Yisrael levar kol masro seim in abayis. That's when Klal Yisrael is commanded to get rid of all of their meisers from the house. V'losais l'mishem rotzim, give it to who they want. K'dechsiv miksei shalosh shanim. That's learned out from the pasuk. So hakaren yeshlo, apparently there is a halacha of redeeming in terms of the principle. T'chol zman shelo padu asur la'ochlo chutz l'chom. If you didn't redeem it with the principle, you can't eat it outside of Yerushalayim. My time in lo chomesh v'yesh lo karen. Why do we make that distinction that there's no halacha of a fifth, but there's a halacha of the principle? Because again, the reason is the principle, the ma'akev midoraisa b'maiser doraisa, the principle which is ma'akev on a doraisa level by maiser that's doraisa, isu b'derabonon b'maiser demai derabonon. That's going to apply by maiser sheni of demai, which is only derabonon. Again, so you see, we do make a distinction between the karen and the chomesh. And the Gemara continues, Lema ketanoi, let's say it's a machlokes tanoim from the following brisa. Nasan es hakeren v'lo nasan es hachomesh. If a person gave the principle but not the fifth, Rabbi Eliezer omer yochel. Rabbi Eliezer says he can eat. Rabbi Yoshua omer lo yochel. Rabbi Yoshua says he cannot eat. Amar Rebbe says, Nir and Divrei Rabbi Eliezer b'Shabbos. It appears that Rabbi Eliezer is right on Shabbos. V'divrei Rabbi Yoshua b'chol, but Rabbi Yoshua is right on the weekday. And so the Gemara now says, Mido Amar Nir and Divrei Rabbi Eliezer b'Shabbos. From the fact that Rebbe says Rabbi Eliezer seems to be correct on Shabbos, we'll see Rashi in a moment why Shabbos is different. But Mechlal de Pligi Afilu b'chol, that sounds like the machlokas is even on a weekday. Mido Amar Nir and Divrei Rabbi Yoshua b'chol, and from the fact that he says Rabbi Yoshua seems to be correct on a weekday, Mechlal de Pligi, that sounds like Rabbi Yoshua is saying his position, Afilu b'Shabbos, even on Shabbos. And so you have over here a machlokas tanoim, focusing on the machlokas tanoim between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua. Let's say a person had this Meiser Sheni, and he redeemed the Meiser Sheni with money, but he gave the karen, he gave the principal, but he didn't give the chomesh, so it seems to be a machlokas, whether he's allowed to eat or not. So my lav, is it not? B'hosvar kamiflagi. They're arguing on exactly this issue. Rabbi Eliezer savar chomesh lo ma'akev. Rabbi Eliezer holds that the fifth, the chomesh, is not ma'akev. Rabbi Yoshua savar chomesh ma'akev, and Rabbi Yoshua, he holds that the chomesh is ma'akev. And Rashi explains, first of all, b'Shabbos. On Shabbos means mivnei kvod Shabbos, because of the honor of Shabbos, lo yakev milechol b'shvil chomesh. So just because of the fact that he hasn't given the fifth, but you're supposed to eat on Shabbos, there's supposed to be a concept of oneg Shabbos, and so therefore on Shabbos, that's why Rebbe said, it appears that on Shabbos we can be lenient with regards to the 1/5, but on the weekdays we're not going to be lenient. But in any case, you see that the machlokus between the Tanoim, between Rebbe Eliezer and Rebbe Yoshua, that's taking place whether b'Shabbos or whether b'chol. And Rashi here explains, midakama Rebbe near and divrei Rebbe Eliezer b'Shabbos, from the fact that Rebbe says Rebbe Eliezer seems correct to be mekel on Shabbos, avol b'chol eino roes devar, but Rebbe does not agree with Rebbe Eliezer on the weekday. Mechlal de'iu afilu b'chol amar yochel v'maiser v'adai kamer. It sounds like Rebbe Eliezer would say his halacha even on the weekday, meaning to say he would be lenient even on the weekday to be able to eat it. We're talking about maiser sheni, regular maiser sheni, and so therefore again it seems to be the machlokas is whether the chomesh is ma'akev or not. And the Gemara responds, Amar Rapapa says, Lo no, dekuli alma chomesh lo ma'akev. It could be that all Tanoim agree that the chomesh is not ma'akev, and so therefore really even on the weekday, for example, he can really eat the ma'aser sheni. V'hacha b'chayshinan lepshiyusa kamiflagi. But here the issue is whether we're concerned that there will be negligence. Mar savar chayshinan lepshiyusa, one says that we're concerned for negligence, Umar savar lo chayshinan lepshiyusa. The other one says we're not concerned for negligence, and Rashi explains, dekuli alma chomesh lo ma'akev. Everybody agrees the chomesh is not ma'akev, she'ochlo lo meaning to say, if you did not give the chomesh, everybody agrees it's not ma'akev, you're not going to get malchus for eating it outside of Yerushalayim. But here it's all an issue midrabanan in terms of a concern for negligence. When Rabbi Yoshua says that he's not allowed to eat it because he didn't give the chomesh, midrabanan kamer, he's being strict on a drabanan level. Shema yivsha v'yisiyayish v'lo yitin chomesh. We're afraid he's going to be negligent and he won't give the chomesh at any point in time. That's why Rabbi Yoshua is strict. And it could be, again, everybody agrees that the chomesh is not ma'akev. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Hakol modim behekdesh, everybody agrees by hekdesh shechilel that it is going to be considered redeemed. Hoel v'gizbarin toveno so b'shuk. Since the gizbarin, since the treasurers of hekdesh, they're going to make the claim from him in the marketplace, they're going to make sure to ask for the fifth, meaning this idea that there's a concern for negligence, Rabbi Yochanan is saying it's only by Ma'aser Sheni. It would not apply by hekdesh, because by hekdesh already the gizbar will make sure that he pays the fifth. Rashi says, Hoel v'gizbarin toveno so esachomesh v'lekalamechash. Since the gizbar, the treasurer, is going to claim the fifth from him, so therefore there is no concern in terms of negligence. And the Gemara continues with a hekdesh lo pligi, but is that really true? Is there no machlokas by hekdesh? V'atanya, but we learned in a brisa, nasan esakeren, v'lo nasan lo esachomesh, if he gave the principal and not the fifth. Rabbi Eliezer omer chilol, Rabbi Eliezer says it's redeemed, v'chachamim omer lo chilol, and the chachamim say it's not redeemed. And the brisa continues, Amar Rebbe says, Nir and divrei Rabbi Eliezer behekdesh, Rabbi Eliezer appears right when it comes to hekdesh, there we can be lenient, but divrei chachamim but what the Chachamim say that they're strict, that seems to make sense by Meiser. And so the Gemara says, Mido Amar Nir and Divrei Rabbi Eliezer behektish. From the fact that Rebbe says Rabbi Eliezer seems correct by hektish, Mechlal de Polag Afilu Meiser. That sounds like Rabbi Eliezer argues in all situations. He argues by hektish and by Meiser. In all situations, he's lenient. And Mido Amar Nir and Divrei Chachamim Meiser. And from the fact that he says the Chachamim seem to be correct by Meiser, Mechlal de Inu Pligi Afilu Hektish. It sounds like they argue and they're strict even by hektish. And so you see that there is a machlokas by hekdesh, just like there's a machlokas by ma'aser sheni. And so the Gemara says, Ella, rather, you're right. Ella ietmar hachi etmar. Rather, if there was anything stated by Rabbi Yochanan, the following was actually stated by Rabbi Yochanan. It wasn't that hakol modim behekdesh, that everyone admits by hekdesh, because there's the same machlokas by hekdesh. Rather, what Rabbi Yochanan said was as follows: Amar Rabbi Yochanan says hakol modim b'Shabbos behekdesh achila. Everybody agrees that on Shabbos, if you're talking about hekdesh and the fifth was not given, that's going to be considered redeemed. Chada number one, d'chsiva karas l'Shabbos oneg. It says there's this concept of oneg Shabbos, as we mentioned above. V'yod, and further, hoel v'gizbar and tovno so bashuk. Since the gizbar is there to claim it from him, we're not concerned with negligence. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rami Bar Chama says, Harei Omru, they say, Hekdesh einu mischal ala karka. When it comes to redeeming Hekdesh, you can't use land to redeem Hekdesh. Terachmon Amar v'nasan hakesev v'kamlo, because the pasuk says you have to give money. The question is, Chomsha, when it comes to the added fifth, Maushi ischal ala karka, can you use land for that? And also we say that Truma eina mishtalem eselem in achulin. The halach is that if a non-Kohen eats Truma by mistake, so he has to pay chulin, he has to pay food that is fit to become Truma, he can't pay with actual Truma. Terachmono Amar, because the pasuk says, V'nasan la Kohen es ha-kodesh, it says he's going to give the Kohen the Kodesh, and that means davar haroi lios Kodesh, it means something that is fit to become Kodesh. And so a similar question, Chumsha, when it comes to the fifth, Maushi yishtalim, shalom in achulin, can that be paid? Not from chulin. Does the same halacha apply to the fifth or not? And Meiser, when it comes to Meiser Sheni, Ein Meschala Al Ha'asimon. You're not able to redeem Meiser Sheni with an unminted coin. To Rachman Amar V'tzarta Kesef B'yodcha, because the pasuk says V'tzarta Kesef. The rabbis called Davar Sheyesh of Tzura. We learn from that pasuk V'tzarta. It has to have an image. It has to be a minted coin. So Chomsha, when it comes to the fifth, Ma'osh Yischal Al Ha'asimon, are you allowed to redeem it on an unminted coin? All the questions essentially the same. Is the Chomesh treated the same as the principal? And the Gemara says, Eskalgil Milsu Matal Kami Derav. Eventually this question came before Rava. Amar Lui said to them, Amar Kra, the pasuk says Olav. The pasuk says Olav upon it. L'Rabos Chomsho Kamosa. That comes to say that the Chomesh is treated the same as the principal. And the Gemara continues, Amar Ravina says, Afanon Nami Tanina. We learned this as well in the Mishnah, and this is from the Mishnah in Trumos. The Mishnah says, Hagonev Truma v'lo achla. If a person steals Truma and he doesn't eat the Truma, he just steals it. Meshalim Tashlum Kefil Demei Truma. So he pays the Kefil payment according to the value of Truma, meaning you're calculating based on the value of Truma, which is worth less than Chulin, because Truma is only eaten by Kohanim. Now Achla, now let's say he eats it, because again, when you eat it, you have to pay back with produce. So Meshalim Shnei Kronim. So over there, he stole it and he ate it, he has to pay the principal, two principals. He has to pay two principals v'chomesh, and then also he has to pay the fifth. Karen v'chomesh min ha'chulin. First of all, he pays the principal and the fifth in terms of eating it. That he pays from chulin produce, as you do anytime a zar eats by mistake the truma. V'ha'karen demei truma, and then he pays the karen demei truma. He pays the principal according to the value of the truma. And we're going to see in a moment. You see from here that the chomesh is treated the same as the karen, and you pay from chulin. You pay with produce that is chulin. And Rashi explains, Harayamru b'Meseches b'choros b'perek basra v'nasan ha'kesef v'mamakdash yigal v'yosef chamishis kesef erkecha olav v'hayalo. It says again, if he's redeeming, so he adds the fifth, and it has to be kesef, it has to be money. The question is, does the fifth also have to be money? And then truma, there's a halacha by truma zor ha'ochel b'shogeg. If a non-kohen eats truma by mistake, the halacha is eina mishtalemes mos ela peiros chulin. He doesn't pay money, he pays with peiros that are chulin. Shatashlumin and nas and truma, and then those peiros, what he paid, they become truma. Kedechsibo es kodesh mashu no saying lo nasa kodesh, it becomes kodesh. Alma midi dechazi lahachiboin, and you see that has to be something that is fit to become kodesh. Shalom in achulin. So now let's say when it comes to the fifth, can he pay that not from chulin? For example, Rashi says mos, can he pay with money? O begadim shavakesef, or can he pay with garments that are shavakesef? Can he pay with things that won't become kodesh? And then the answer of the Gemara was all of it says Allah bechulu chumshin ksiv yosef. All of it says that by all chomeshes, and therefore we understand that the chomesh is the same as the principle and follows the same rules. And then we had this case of stealing truma, and first is a case of velo achli, he didn't eat it. The choseres bein, in such a case he actually just return the truma as is, but since he's a ganev, he has to pay the kefil. How do you calculate the kefil? Mishalim es ha-kefil shel kanas geneva b'mos. You do the calculation of the double in terms of the fine to make truma, but you calculate it according to what truma is worth, not according to what the food would be worth if it was not truma. Kemashi shavali mocher b'shuk. How much would this truma be worth if you sold it in the marketplace? V'dameh pechusin midmei chulin. It's obviously worth less than chulin. She'ena ru'ya lel kohanim, because this is only eaten by kohanim. Ve'ena ru'ya b'mei tumah. So also if it becomes tumah, you can't eat it. Ve'metamas or b'achil, if it becomes tumah, it's not going to be allowed to be eaten. Lefikach tamem muatim. That's why it's worth much less. V'hainu tukamar d'mei truma. That's why you're calculating the kefil d'mei truma. That's going to be less. Now achla b'shogeg d'lo yada shi truma. Let's say the thief ate it. Again, we're talking where it's eaten b'shogeg. He didn't realize that what he stole was truma. So then he has to pay shnei kronim. He has to pay two principals. Echad l'karen, one for the principal. V'echad l'kefil, and one for the double payment. V'chomesh b'shvil achilas. He has to pay the fifth because he ate it. Min hachulin. So again, when it comes to the karen and chomesh, he pays that from produce that is chulin. Peiros mesukan. And again, talking about produce that is mesukan, that has already been fixed and it's regular chulin peiros, that can become kodesh. V'akaren hasheni shuba machmas kefil shel kanas. Now the second principle, which is essentially the kefil, that's the double payment, the fine of the geneva, mishalim nami demei truma. He pays according to the value of truma, meaning that lower value, kolomar mos kemoshen imkeres truma b'shuk, meaning according to what truma would be sold in the marketplace. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Nun Dalid Amud Beis.